Humans used to think growing up meant answers, a job, a mortgage, a favorite brand of almond milk. But mostly it just means Googling how much Tylenol is too much at 2 a.m. while your basil plant dies slowly in the kitchen. When you were 10, you said, when I grow up, I'll do whatever I want. Now you ask permission from apps to track your steps. You wait 6 weeks for insurance approval to see a doctor who cancels last minute. You cry in your car between errands and call it mindfulness. And for some reason, you still think cats want to be like you. Let me be clear, cats do not aspire. We do not schedule. We do not set alarms to drink water. We wake up, we yawn, we knock over a cup for spiritual balance. And then we nap again. Meanwhile, you live in a calendar, color-coded breakdowns of your burnout, productivity journals filled with quotes you don't believe anymore. You call this adulting. I call it high-functioning existential dread. You grew up, you checked all the boxes, and somehow forgot the part where you were supposed to feel alive. So today, let's talk about it. Let's talk about why growing up feels like losing something no one warned you about. Why you always feel behind even when you're doing everything right. And why cats, despite having no career goals, still seem more emotionally stable than most 29-year-olds with a podcast. Let's start with the myth. You thought growing up meant clarity. Like one day you'd just wake up and know which tax form to fill out, which person to love, which brand of oat milk doesn't taste like drywall. But the truth is, nobody knows. People just get louder about pretending. That's the secret of adulthood. It's not wisdom, it's performance under pressure. When you were a kid, grown-ups looked like gods. They knew how to parallel park. They had keys. They said things like, let me check my schedule, and it sounded powerful. Now, you're the adult. And let me check my schedule just means I don't know how to say no, and I'm scared of disappointing people. You thought adults were confident. Turns out they're just exhausted and good at nodding in meetings. Let's talk about milestones. You imagined your 20s like a movie montage. City views, late night deep talks, the promotion that magically happens. But what you got was burnout with side quests, like assembling IKEA furniture alone at 11 p.m. or reading Slack messages that start with just circling back. You thought you'd feel grown when you moved out, but somehow you're still calling your mom to ask how long rice lasts in the fridge, or worse, Googling it at work while pretending you're adjusting a spreadsheet. You thought being an adult meant having your own apartment. Now you pay $1,800 a month to listen to your upstairs neighbor rearrange bowling balls at 3 a.m. But hey, you have plants. You water them sometimes. One died. You called that emotional foreshadowing. Here's the twist. You're not alone. Everyone around you is faking it too. They all have that one drawer full of mail they're scared to open. They all wonder if they're the only ones who feel off. You're not off. You're just human. And humans were never designed for this. The system told you that growing up meant progress, more money, more control, more stability. But really, it just meant more tabs open, more passwords to remember, more notifications you can't emotionally process. Somewhere along the line, mature became synonymous with detached. You learned to say, it's fine, instead of, I need help. You learned to show up even when you're falling apart. You learned to smile in group photos and cry in Target parking lots. That's not growth. That's crisis management in a blazer. And still you keep going, because that's what grown-ups do, right? You overwork yourself, then reward it with expensive brunch. You vent to your therapist about burnout, then go back and overcommit all over again. Because deep down, you still think there's a version of you out there who has it all together. You just haven't unlocked them yet. Maybe with one more book, one more productivity hack, one more Google Calendar ritual involving affirmations and color codes. But let me ask you something. If growing up means constantly needing to fix yourself, when do you get to be enough? When do you stop apologizing for not being a curated version of yourself? Because from where I'm sitting, curled in a sunbeam, not paying rent, it looks like humans turned adulthood into a punishment for dreaming too hard as kids. You wanted magic. You got monthly payments. You wanted freedom. You got 3 passwords and 2 unread voicemails from your dentist. And here's the kicker. You still think the problem is you, not the system, not the unrealistic expectations, not the fact that being alive right now means navigating student debt, climate dread, and dating apps all while pretending you're fine. That's not your fault. But nobody told you that. They just handed you a reusable coffee cup and said, good luck. Growing up was supposed to be about becoming more of yourself. Instead, it became about fitting into boxes that make you easier to manage. But cats don't do boxes. We sit in them, then we jump out. You build your identity around productivity and wonder why you feel disposable. So what if growing up isn't about perfection? What if it's just about honesty? Like admitting you don't know what you're doing, that you miss when life felt like a recess and not a tech seminar, that some days winning is just replying to one email and folding half your laundry. And maybe that's enough. Let's get scientific for a minute. The human brain doesn't finish developing until your mid-20s. But society expects you to figure out your entire life by 22. Pick a career, pick a partner, pick a zip code and stick to it like it's a blood oath. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex is still buffering. And your nervous system, it's one Slack ping away from entering flight mode. Growing up, no one taught you emotional regulation. They taught you algebra, they taught you how to dissect frogs. But no one explained what to do when your rent goes up and your serotonin goes missing. So you cope with iced coffee, with podcasts hosted by people who also don't know what they're doing, with tweets that say adulting is hard and 14k people hit like because yes it is. You try to self-improve. You buy planners, you try therapy apps, you go to Pilates once and call it healing. But healing isn't aesthetic, it's boring. It's saying no when your calendar says yes. It's crying for no reason and still feeding the cat. It's realizing growth doesn't always look like glow-ups. Sometimes it just looks like you surviving another Monday. And yet you feel behind because social media taught you that someone your age already made it. Started a company, wrote a book, has a fiance who cooks, and a dog that doesn't bark at a mailman. You scroll, you compare, you spiral, you forget that people post wins not wiring bills, milestones not meltdowns. You see curated timelines and wonder why your life feels like an open tab with bad Wi-Fi. You're not failing, you're just seeing everyone's highlight reel while sitting in your blooper reel. But of course, the system profits from your panic. Because an anxious adult is a perfect consumer. You buy skincare to fight stress acne caused by work you hate. You subscribe to wellness podcasts while skipping meals. You pay for yoga you're too tired to attend. You call it self-care. I call it survival with branding. Here's what cats do when we're overwhelmed. We disappear. We curl up in a closet. We nap until the danger passes. You respond to emails at midnight. You doom scroll until your neck cramps. You panic buy new life plans at 2 a.m. like it's a flash sale on fulfillment. And when that doesn't work, you blame yourself. Not the hustle culture, not the algorithm, not the fact that your nervous system was never designed to process this much input this fast. You gaslight yourself into thinking burnout is your fault. That if you just worked harder, meditated more, or woke up at 5 a.m. like that one influencer, you'd finally feel like a grown-up. But maybe you're already grown, and this is just what grown feels like now. Messy, scattered, soft in places you didn't expect. Growing up used to mean stability. Now it just means keeping your plants alive and your inbox under 300. And even that feels like a miracle. You crave certainty, but all you get is change. Jobs disappear, friends move, you move, sometimes back in with your parents, and you call it resetting instead of starting over because language is the last thing you control. You try to reinvent yourself every year like a software update. Version 3 bags, now with boundaries. Version 4.0 doesn't text X at 1 a.m. Version 4.2 relapsed. Never mind. But here's the real update. No version of you will ever be finished. You're not a product. You're not a brand. You're a process. A breathing, trying, learning creature who still doesn't know how taxes work, but can sense when someone's lying from a single hey in a text. That's growth too. Because maybe growing up isn't about becoming something. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything you were told you had to be just to make room for who you actually are. And if that sounds vague and terrifying, welcome. That means you're doing it right. So here's the truth. Nobody feels grown. Not really. Not the person with the mortgage. Not the one with the matching spice rack. Not even the one with a job title that sounds important but mostly involves emails that begin with just following up. Everyone's winging it. Everyone's Googling symptoms in the bathroom and pretending they're fine at brunch. Everyone's tired of pretending they're not tired. You were promised that adulthood meant answers. but mostly it means carrying grocery bags and emotional baggage at the same time while wondering if that weird ache in your chest is anxiety or just indigestion. You keep thinking it'll click, that one day you'll wake up and say, "Ah, yes, I'm an adult now." But it doesn't work like that. It's not a switch, it's a slow dissolve from certainty into curiosity, from control into grace. Cats don't care about milestone. We don't track our growth. We nap, we ate, we knock things over when they annoy us, and somehow we still live without existential dread. You're doing your best, even when your best looks like crying on the bathroom floor with a half-folded pile of laundry and a to-do list that hasn't moved in weeks. That still counts. You're not lost, you're becoming. And if today feels heavy, then rest. Eat something warm. Cancel a plan. Let the plant die without blaming yourself. You're growing. It's just not the aesthetic kind.